All right, sorry, I was having technical difficulties and it just kind of stopped recording. But anyway, so we are right here. All right, and so this says he starts jogging again backwards for 10 seconds and 20 meters. So he's going 20 meters in 10 seconds, but he's going backwards. So that's telling us there's a change in the direction of the line. And then it says he's 4 meters away from his church. Okay, so there he is. Okay, 4 meters away from his church. And then he says his mom was driving by and he stopped to talk to her for 4 seconds. So here it is, 4 seconds. We got a horizontal line of no motion. So the general look of this graph should have been quite similar to this. The only thing, like I said, may have been that you may have not realized which way his church was. All right, graph number 4. So this one says a group of runners started at the starting line and ran 3 kilometers in 5 hours. So here they are starting at the starting line. They run 3 kilometers in 5 hours. Okay, so that part checks out. They stayed there and rested for 3 hours. So then they decide they're going to rest for 3 hours. Okay. They then did a dash and went 9 kilometers in 4 hours. So then they dash and they do 9 kilometers in 4 hours. Then they rested there for 2 hours. So then there's their rest period. And then they ran 12 kilometers for 6 hours back to the finish line. So the fact that they ran back to the finish line tells you there's a change in direction. So they ran 12 kilometers in 6 hours back towards the finish line. So that tells you that it's moving that way. So you should have had your graph pretty much identical to this one here because the things that were in the story were accurate. Okay, graph number 5. Okay. So this story says, a man was sitting in his car to go to Subway. Okay, so he's sitting in his car. He sat in his car for 3 minutes trying to find his wallet in his car. So there he is. He's sitting for 3 minutes trying to find his wallet. He drove 8 miles to go to Subway. When he got there, he ordered and got his food in 5 minutes. So we know he drove 8 miles to Subway, but we don't know how long it took him to drive to Subway. So this right here, we don't actually know what the slope of this line would be because we don't know the actual time it took for him to drive that 8 miles. But then it says when he got there, he ordered his food in 5 minutes. So when he's sitting there, okay, he's ordering his food for 5 minutes. Okay, so that's that period of time right there. So then it says he noticed his gas was low, so he tried to drive 6 miles in 2 minutes, but he didn't make it. So he had to detour to the gas station. So here at this point, we don't have an indicator that tells us he actually turned around. So your graph may have kept going up this way according to the story because we don't know that he actually turned around. But it says he did 6 miles in 2 minutes. Okay, so there's that. It says he stopped for 2 minutes. So there he is. He stopped for 2 minutes to get gas. And then he started driving the rest of the 2 miles in 5 minutes. So here's the 2 miles in 5 minutes, but unfortunately we don't know which direction he was going. And then it says he was so hungry that he stopped in the driveway to eat his food for 4 minutes. So here he was eating his food. So if you read the entire story before you started graphing, you may have been able to figure out that he was driving from home to Subway and then back home. But this portion right here, we don't know which way the gas station was. We don't know if it was farther away from home or closer to home. This graph is kind of hit or miss, whether it actually looked like this or not. So I pointed out the issues with it. Hopefully, it looked somewhat similar, at least kind of up to this point. I know we didn't actually know the time here, but hopefully it was somewhat similar here and maybe a little bit similar here. Okay, graph number 6. Oops, it's upside down. All right, so graph number 6, this story says, a guy runs to the stop sign in 150 feet in 20 seconds. So the first issue that we have here is that the story talks about feet, but the measurement here, if you look at that, it says the measurement is in meters, okay, not feet. So that's issue number 1. And then also this is measured in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. So I'm not really sure where the 150 feet part came in, or the 20 seconds part, because these are in 1, 2, like 0, 2, 4 seconds. So this graph is going to be very different than the actual graph. So according to this story, you would have had them going 150 feet in 2 seconds, or excuse me, 20 seconds. Then he stays still. Okay, so here's the part where they're staying still to catch their breath. Then they run to the next stop sign for 100 feet in 10 seconds, and then sprinted back to the park for 30 seconds. So a lot of issues with this story here. It doesn't even talk about this area of rest at all. So if you did this graph, it looks nothing like the real graph. Okay. In fact, this one would be fairly difficult to do because the numbers are just so large. All right, graph number 7. So graph number 7 says, Sally walked her dog 1 kilometer in 0.2 hours. So it goes 1 kilometer in 0.2 hours, so that makes sense. Then they stopped for 0.2 hours to take a break. So here they are, they stopped for 0.2 hours to take a break. Then she walked back 0.75 kilometers in 0.2 hours. So the fact that she's walking back tells you that there's a change in direction. Okay, so they're walking back 0.75 miles, and they do that in 0.2 hours. Then she forgot something, so she walked 1 kilometer for 0.4 hours back towards the way she originally was. So here's the extra 1 kilometer, and they do that in 0.4 hours. So hopefully you caught that there was another change of motion happening here. So your graph definitely should have looked like this up until this point, and then hopefully you caught that the motion actually changes direction for this part. All right, and then last but not least, we have graph number 8. So graph number 8 says, someone is driving a car to Chick-fil-A 10 meters per second. Okay, so they're going 10 meters and they're doing that in 1 second. They get on the highway, then they continue driving 10 meters for 3 seconds. So the person that wrote this story completely forgot about this rest period here. So your graph is definitely going to look a little bit odd because you don't have this rest period here. So because they just skipped right over to here, that they went, it says 10 meters for 3 seconds. Well, this isn't even 10 meters. This is 30 meters. They go 30 meters, and they did that in 3 seconds. So that part of the story is also wrong. And then it says, then they forgot their wallet and they had to go back home. So they increased their speed and accelerate back home 40 meters in 1 second. So then they went 40 meters in 1 second back home. But because this line was so off for you guys, if you would have actually graphed this according to the story, it would have the line actually go below the graph. So some issues with the story here because of this whole area that got forgotten, and then also the fact that the meters here were wrong. It said 10, but the actual meters is 30. All right, so hopefully if you were one of the groups that had some mistakes in your story, hopefully you understand what those mistakes were and you understand how to correct them, because next week is your test. Originally I said that the test is going to be on Monday, but it's actually going to be next Tuesday. Today you are getting a study guide, so please make sure that you actually fill it out and then study it. It will be due on Monday, so you definitely want to make sure you have it filled out before class on Monday, so that way we can discuss it. Okay, do not wait to try to fill it out during class. You need to have it filled out before class on Monday. Also, tomorrow is your benchmark test, so just try your best that you can on it. If you want to study, you can study your anchor charts that are in your notebook. But other than that, just make sure that you have your study guide completed for Monday. All right, and I'll see you guys then.